they are not very public facing, and so it's difficult to get into their thought processes.
Mhm.
And I think that's been the case for across the board with media. And I think some of it may have to do with how much they were criticized during the time of the trade, and I think they just kind of retreated post that. But like look, Dumars has given one press conference a season. That's when he fired Willie Green, and he did that press conference with media on Zoom with the camera off. And then 20 minutes later, we were at the practice facility for practice, and he's right there at practice. So it's like that's an interaction that could have happened in person. Um, I can only hope that if there's not regret, there is a sense of, well, hey, whatever our processes were that led to this decision, we have to reevaluate those to make sure we can be better next time. I can only hope. I do know from the moment that trade happened, pretty much the whole building was like, "Why? How?" Like, so that should kind of you know put into perspective that um, where the power lies in terms of decision making, and if people could change it, they would. Now with them, I have no clue.
No, it's definitely a great way how you put it because especially I didn't know that they weren't that forward facing. I knew that Troy Weaver had some eccentric personality displays in Detroit, but it's been kind of at least in that sense, I hadn't heard anything out of New Orleans. But James Borrego, I've been able to speak to him a couple times pre and post game when they played the Heat, and he's a very, I think, put together person. And I knew last year they wanted to make him head coach. Gail Benson basically stopped that because she's friends with Willie Green's wife. And now James comes in. Will James get an opportunity to at least be a candidate for the job search, or is the job search over, sort of like a Brian Keefe Wizards, where they're gonna have a quote unquote search and then just announce 3 months later that, oh yeah, he's coach?
Yeah, look, I think if it were up to me, James Borrego should just have the interim tag removed. Now I understand. Look, I understand the merits of, hey, look, we want to run a full job search. We want to turn over every stone, every corner, and then decide. And I think that's actually a perfectly valid way to do things. And if that's the route they want to go down, great. But I think we've all kind of heard the intel around them. That's not how they operate. That's not how they evaluate things. They just have ideas and guys in mind, and then they go do that. And the guys that they have in mind right now are Darvin Ham and Jamal Mosley, who I think there is a lot of chatter around the league that he is going to be let go if Orlando doesn't do so well in the playoffs, or maybe his fate is already sealed. We've kind of already seen the tensions around Mosley and some of the players in with the Magic. The most recent spat with Paulo Banchero and Mosley, that where they kind of exchanged some criticism at each other through the media. It was kind of bizarre there, but the same thing with how Dumars was hired. There was no search that was done that led him to get the position. The Benson group already knew from a long time, like, hey, when we get rid of Griff, this is the guy we're bringing in. So in that regard, I hope Borrego gets a fair shake. I do know the players respect the hell out of him. They love the energy that he's brought to practices and the level of detail and attention that he goes into these film sessions, and how he structures everything. Just and from a relationship standpoint, like, people just rave about how he actually like connects with people and cares about them. And that's before we get to any of the on court stuff, where I think he's completely transformed how this team runs its offense. And again, they've decentralized their offense away from Zion in a way that's become increasingly effective. And that was a challenge that Willie Green would talk about every single season. Oh, we don't want to be relying on one guy. And then as soon as Zion would get hurt, the team would fall apart. They've largely accomplished the decentralization of the offense from Zion. And he's developing the young guys. Eve's having a great year. Fears has gotten better and better as the years gone on. And so, Sadiq Bey has turned into a legitimate, NBA starting level guy who's closing out games for them in the clutch. So I think Borrego has certainly done enough to where he needs a look at the head coach. And I would respect that if they decide to do a full, actual, valid search and then they pick the actual best candidate, I think that's valid. I would not respect if they ran no search and they just kind of picked the guys they wanted. That would be the worst of all worlds.
So Kevin Ollie being your head coach is just not acceptable. I'm being half serious when I say that.
With respect to Kevin Ollie, I'm sure he's a great guy. I would believe that there are better head coaches out there.
I have this premonition that it's going to be, if it's not James Borrego, it's going to be Kevin Ollie. No fact, like Kevin Ollie, I loved him at UConn and stuff, but
I would key in on him and Mosley. Those are guys I'd watch out for.
Now, basically, that's everything we had to ask you, Shammit. Like, right, Shammit, right?
Yeah,
Shammit. I literally said it wrong, and then Shammit. So I wanted to make sure. No, my name's Cyro, so like Cyro, like everyone butchers it. So I feel like it's your name is something that defines you. So to get it right. Now, Sam, did you have anything else to ask? If not, if you want to shout out your links.
Just like super quick, like you haven't talked much about Trey Murphy. I just wanted to ask, like, he's been with the team his whole career. Like, I know he wouldn't mind getting traded in a way. Like, he wouldn't mind playing somewhere else. But like from what you've seen and just you seeing his whole career there, like, do you feel like they're going to trade him? Like, because in terms of value, I feel like he is the best. They would get the most value for him. But do they see him as a piece for their retooling, I guess you would call it? Like, what's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, look, I think they view him as a guy that pairs perfectly with their star draft pick and Queen, right? And Fears, right? And Trey is someone that pairs perfectly with anybody because he's a off-ball, highly efficient offensive player that can shapeshift into whatever offensive role you really need him to outside of being like a high usage creator. And so I think they know what they have in him and they've set the price for him appropriately high. And if someone comes and meets that price, then I do think that, that's a trade that they would entertain. But for the most part, they want to move forward with Trey Murphy. They want to move forward with Herb Jones and their core. Like that is their plan. That's their vision. But shoot, man, like if Utah offers them the 4th pick in this draft, like how are they going to act? I don't know. It's so difficult to predict what's going to happen at draft time and just how much they value some other people or some of these prospects that are in this year's draft. That is the biggest wild card for me.